I knew something was off the moment the security guard looked at me like I had spoken a foreign language. All I wanted that morning was to surprise my wife, Marisa, at her office. After 22 years of marriage, small gestures still mattered to me. She had been working late again, buried in those endless executive meetings and strategy calls that came with being the youngest CEO in the entire Helix district. At 48, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who lived her whole life 10 steps ahead of everyone else. I'm Joel, by the way. I'm 57 years old, and until that morning I thought I understood my wife. Maybe not perfectly, but enough to trust the life we'd built. I walked into that glass tower entrance holding a latte and a small lunchbox I packed myself. Roasted chicken, her favorite. The lobby of Solaris Corporate Center was bright with natural sunlight pouring through tall windows, illuminating marble floors with a warm glow. No gloom, no shadows, nothing that hinted my world was about to tilt sideways. This is the day they told me another man was already inside claiming to be my wife's husband. But before I tell you what happened next, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It helps more than you know. I approached the security desk, smiling politely. "Good morning," I said. "I'm here to see Marisa Hale. She's the CEO." The guard, a sturdy guy with kind eyes, studied me for a second too long. Not suspicious, more like confused. "Sir, you said you're her husband?" "Yes," I chuckled. "Joel, I brought her lunch." The man's face changed completely. His eyebrows lifted and then he gave a bewildered laugh, like he'd heard the world's strangest joke. "Sir, I see her husband every day. He checked in earlier. He should be back down any minute." My grip tightened around the coffee cup. "I'm sorry?" I asked quietly. "Her husband?" The guard nodded like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Yes, the guy who picks her up sometimes, tall, dark suit, always goes straight to the private elevator." I felt something inside me loosen. Not break, just shift. Then the guard pointed toward the shimmering lobby entrance. "There," he said. "That's him." I turned and saw a man walking toward us with the confidence of someone who belonged in every room he entered. Mid-40s maybe. Fit, stylish charcoal jacket, expensive leather folder tucked under one arm. He wasn't handsome in a flashy way, more in a curated corporate way. He gave the guard a friendly nod. "Morning, Luis. Marisa asked me to pick up the revised contracts." Luis smiled. "Of course, sir. Her husband stopped by, too." Her husband. That word stabbed the quiet air between us. The man paused, turned, and looked at me. Really looked. Something flickered across his face. Recognition? Calculation? A tiny fraction of hesitation? But then he smiled politely. "Can I help you?" "I'm a friend of Marisa's," I managed. "Just dropping off lunch." I don't know why I said that. Instinct, maybe. Some deep, stunned part of me trying to understand what I was standing in the middle of. He extended his hand. "Damon." No ring on his finger. No nervousness. Just a man fully confident in the role he believed he occupied. He left with the contracts, disappearing into the elevator. The doors closed with a metallic sigh and the sunlight continued streaming into the lobby as if nothing abnormal had happened. But everything had just changed. I walked back to my car slowly, the lunchbox still in my hand. The sunlight outside suddenly feeling too bright, as if the world refused to dull itself to match the confusion in my chest. 22 years of marriage, and now there was a man walking around her office, claiming a title that belonged to me. A title she had never once suggested was up for replacement. And this wasn't even the worst part, because what I discovered later that day, behind her closed office door, we made the lobby incident look harmless. What I found upstairs erased every assumption I ever had about my wife. And trust me, the truth didn't just hurt. It rewrote my entire marriage. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time. The lunch I'd packed still resting on the passenger side. The sunlight pouring through the windshield felt unreal. Too warm, too gentle for the storm building inside my chest. I'm 57 years old. I've lived long enough to know when life throws curveballs. But this? Nothing prepared me for this. I'd come to surprise my wife, Marisa. 48, brilliant, ambitious, the kind of woman who lights up conference rooms. And instead I was told another man walked in each day calling himself her husband. The lobby incident kept replaying in my head, each line sharper than the last. Sir, I see her husband every day. There he is coming in now. Marissa asked me to pick up the contracts. Damon. The name felt like a stone lodged in my throat. I wasn't the dramatic type, never had been. But something in me shifted as I stared at the building's shimmering windows, catching the late morning sun. I couldn't just drive home and pretend this didn't happen. Not after 22 years of marriage, not after everything we'd built. So I turned off the engine, grabbed the lunch, and walked right back toward Solaris Corporate Center. The lobby was bright, sunlight spilling across the marble tiles, reflecting off polished metal, casting everything in a clean, sharp glow. No shadows for anything to hide in. Maybe that was fitting. I bypassed the security desk this time and headed toward the elevator bank. Not the private elevator Damon had used, but the main ones employees used. I wasn't going to barge in like a jealous teenager, but I needed one thing: clarity. As the elevator rose, I tried to calm myself. Marissa and I weren't kids. We'd weathered promotions, layoffs, moves, family losses. She had never once given me a reason to doubt her. Until today. The doors opened to a hallway lined with glass offices. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, making everything bright and open. People moved around with purpose, clear-eyed, cheerful, unaware that my world had tilted. Marissa's office was at the end. The nameplate said, Marissa Hale, Chief Executive Officer. My heart pounded. I lifted my hand, knocked. Come in, her voice, warm, confident, familiar. I stepped inside. Her office was flooded with natural daylight, not a single curtain drawn. White walls, glass desk, sunlight spilling across her paperwork. She looked incredible in a pale blue blazer, hair pulled back in that effortless way that always made her look both powerful and elegant. She smiled when she saw me. Joel, what are you doing here? Not guilty, not nervous, just surprised. I held up the lunch bag. You ran out without breakfast again. She laughed softly, the laugh that usually eased every tension in me. Well, this is sweet, she said, standing and giving me a quick kiss. But you should have told me you were coming. I'm in the middle of... A voice came from outside her door. Marissa, about the revised... Oh, Damon stopped in the doorway. Marissa's assistant trailed behind him with a tablet. Everything was brightly lit, no shadows to hide expressions, which meant I saw everything clearly. Damon froze. Marissa stiffened. Her assistant's eyes widened. Oh, Joel, Marissa said slowly, glancing between the two of us. Have you two met? Met? I swallowed. Yeah. Your security guard introduced us. Her face paled, not dramatically, just enough that I noticed the faint shift under the natural light hitting her skin. Luis said something, she asked carefully. Oh, just that he sees your husband every day, I said, my voice steady. Referring to him. Silence. Bright, unforgiving silence. Damon cleared his throat. Marissa, I can explain. Explain. Explain what? Why the security guard thought he was her husband. Why he walked around like he owned the place. Why he handled her files, used her private elevator, moved through her workplace like a man with a personal claim over her. Marissa pressed a hand to her forehead. Joel, it's not what you think. I'd love to hear what you think I'm thinking, I said quietly. Her assistant quickly slipped out, shutting the door behind her. Marissa exhaled slowly. Joel, please sit. Both of you. Damon remained by the door like he wasn't sure if he belonged inside. My stomach twisted, my hands tightened. But I sat. Marissa, I said, steadying my voice, why does everyone here believe Damon is your husband? Her eyes flicked toward Damon, not lovingly, not guiltily, but with tension. And that was the first moment I realized. Whatever the truth was, it wasn't simple, not even close. Because what Marissa confessed next didn't just shake me. It opened a door I didn't even know existed. And through that door was a truth I never imagined I'd have to face. Marissa didn't speak right away. She just stood there, framed by sunlight pouring through the tall windows, the pale blue of her blazer almost glowing. Damon remained by the office door, looking like a man deciding whether to flee or defend himself. It struck me that this entire office, open glass, transparent walls, everything bathed in daylight, was perfectly designed to expose the truth. But Marissa had never looked more guarded. She finally sat down across from me, folding her hands together so tightly her knuckles turned white. Joel, she said quietly. You have every right to be confused and upset, but please, listen before you react. I leaned back, trying to control the storm inside me. I'm listening. Damon shifted uncomfortably. Should I give you too privacy? No, Marissa said firmly, not looking at him. You should stay. He deserves clarity, not half-truths. My jaw tightened. Clarity would be nice. She took a breath. One of those slow, preparing breaths she used before giving a major presentation. You remember the board shakeup I told you about last year? I nodded. The one where you almost lost your position unless you restructured the leadership. That one, she said. There was a lot more to it than I ever told you. Her voice trembled for the first time. Some members of the board decided they wanted a more family-centric public image for the CEO. Investors were pushing for it. Image matters, optics matter, especially with expansion deals we were courting. I frowned, and I was the youngest CEO the company had ever had, she continued. A woman, divorced once, no children. They saw it as a liability. A bright afternoon ray caught her eyes that looked more tired than I'd realized. So they wanted to replace me. The words hit like a punch. What does that have to do with him? I asked, nodding toward Damon. She turned toward him, and for the first time I saw something that resembled gratitude or regret. Damon stepped in, she said. Stepped in for what? She rubbed her forehead. The board wanted to see stability. A partnered CEO. Someone with a family backbone. Someone grounded. It was old-fashioned, but they were serious. Damon offered to play the role. I blinked at her. Play the role? Marissa, the guard, literally called him your husband, because for the public image of the company, she said softly. He is. I stared at her, stunned. She didn't flinch. For corporate events, investor meetings, charity, galas, certain client interactions, she gestured vaguely. Damon acts as my partner, strictly professionally. A prop, a stabilizer, a corporate asset. Damon cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. It wasn't romantic, Joel, it still isn't. I was helping her protect the company from a takeover attempt. I laughed. Sharp, humorless. So the board thinks he's your husband, the security guard thinks he's your husband, staff thinks he's your husband. But your real husband finds out by accident in the lobby? Marissa winced. I never wanted you to walk into it that way, but you still let it happen. She whispered. I know. Anger rose in me, hot and confusing. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say anything? Because you would have told me not to go through with it, she said, voice barely audible. And I couldn't risk the company falling apart. Not after everything we built. Not after spending nearly 2 decades climbing to this position. That's not your decision alone, I snapped. I'm your husband, Marissa. I should have known. I should have been part of this conversation. I know, she said again. Softer this time, almost ashamed. Damon stepped forward slightly. If it means anything, Joel. She talked about telling you every week. She hated lying to you. The word lying cut through the room like glass. I didn't cheat on you, Marissa said firmly. This isn't an affair, and it never was. Damon is a colleague. One who saved my job when I was about to be pushed out. I know this looks horrible, but the truth isn't what you think. Then she hesitated, and that hesitation said more than her words. But, she added, there is something else I haven't told you. I felt my chest tighten. Something Damon and I agreed to keep hidden until the market announcement next quarter. My pulse hammered. What announcement? Damon looked at her, waiting. Marissa exhaled shakily, and finally said the words that made my entire world tilt again. Joel, I'm not just protecting my job, I'm protecting something bigger. Something that involves you directly. Because what she revealed next didn't just explain everything. It dragged me into a secret that had been unfolding behind my back for more than 1 year. And its impact was far bigger than our marriage. Marissa didn't speak immediately after dropping that bombshell. She stood up instead, moving toward the floor-to-ceiling window behind her desk. Afternoon sunlight washed across her shoulders, outlining her like a silhouette in a corporate painting. There was no darkness, no flickering lights. Everything was clear, painfully clear. I waited. My heart beat loud enough that I wondered if Damon could hear it from across the room. Finally, she turned back toward me. Joel, she said, I've been leading something that the board doesn't know about. Not fully. I frowned. Leading what? She exchanged a quick glance with Damon. The kind of glance that said, "We've rehearsed this, but we hoped we'd never need to say it out loud." "The expansion we announced last year," she said. "The one into 5 new regions." I nodded. "The one you said could change the entire company's trajectory." "That one," she said quietly. "Except it wasn't just an expansion, it was an acquisition. A silent one." That word, acquisition, landed with weight. "What does that have to do with me?" I asked. Marissa took a breath. "Everything." Damon stepped forward. "Your firm was one of the few independent accounting practices in the region that still had clean books, low liability exposure, and a strong legacy reputation." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" Marissa walked around her desk and stopped directly in front of me, sunlight catching the worry in her eyes. "My company purchased your practice, Joel," she said. 8 months ago, through a private intermediary. Your clients, your data, your legacy, everything." I felt a chill even though the room was warm. "You bought my business," I repeated slowly, "without telling me." "It wasn't meant to be a betrayal," she said quickly. "I needed a clean, trustworthy financial division to support the expansion. The board wanted to outsource to a firm they didn't trust. I wanted someone I did." "So your solution," I said, my voice tightening, "was to secretly absorb my practice into your corporation?" "Not secretly," she said, then corrected herself with a wince. "All right, yes, secretly, but because the deal had to be executed off the radar to avoid board interference." I stared at her. My practice, something I'd built across nearly 3 decades, something steady and honest, had become a chess piece in her corporate war. "And Damon?" I asked, looking at the man who'd been acting like her office husband. "He structured the acquisition," she said. "Legally. Quietly." Damon nodded, almost apologetically. "We moved assets under a holding company so it wouldn't be tied back to her until after the expansion was complete." "So let me get this straight," I said. "You pretended to be married to him because the board wanted a stable, partnered CEO. You let him walk around as the public version of your husband. Meanwhile, the two of you were buying my company behind my back?" Marissa closed her eyes for a moment. "Joel, I know how this looks." "No," I said sharply, "you don't. You really don't." She opened her eyes again, and now there was guilt there, real and unmasked. "I was going to tell you everything," she said, "after the quarter closed, after the market announcement, after the board ratified the restructuring. I didn't want you to panic before things were secured." "Panic!" I laughed under my breath. "You erased my ownership of my own business. I didn't even know who technically employs me now." "You're still in control of operations," she insisted. "No one touched your leadership. No one touched your staff. The only change," I interrupted, "is that my life's work is no longer mine." The sunlight outside felt almost cruel. Marissa stepped closer. "Joel, this wasn't about replacing you. It was about protecting you." I stared at her, confused and furious. "Protecting me from what?" The room went quiet. Damon shifted, uncomfortable again. And then Marissa finally said it. "Protecting you from the investigation." Everything in me froze. "What investigation?" I whispered. She looked me straight in the eyes. "The federal audit coming down on every accounting firm linked to the Hutchrow scandal. Your practice handled 3 of their subsidiary accounts 7 years ago. You're on the list, Joel. And when the crackdown happens, firms without corporate backing are going to collapse. I bought your practice so yours wouldn't." My breath caught. I sat back slowly, trying to process a truth bigger than betrayal. My business wasn't stolen. It was shielded, but shielded behind a wall of lies so thick I couldn't see daylight through them. And just when I thought I finally understood the truth, Marissa revealed the real bombshell. The one that explained the fake marriage, the secrecy, and why Damon had been standing in her place. Because the investigation wasn't just coming for my practice. It was coming for me. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at Marissa, sunlight pouring across her office like the whole world was lit except the part inside my chest. "The investigation is coming for me?" I repeated slowly. Marissa nodded, her expression finally losing all traces of corporate polish. "Joel, you unknowingly handled accounts tied to the Hutchrow laundering network years ago. When the indictments roll out, they're going to target every financial signature in that chain. Your name is on 3 of them. That was routine tax prep, I said. Small filings, nothing suspicious. That's exactly why they used firms like yours, she said softly. Clean reputations, trusted faces, they slipped illegal transactions into normal operations. My head spun. I'd spent more than 3 decades building a practice defined by honesty. Spotless books, straightforward clients, nothing flashy. Now she was telling me I'd been a pawn in someone else's criminal scheme? Damon spoke up gently. We've seen the preliminary subpoenas. They're coming down in phases. Smaller firms get hit first. I swallowed hard. And your solution was buying my business without telling me? If the firm is part of a corporate entity, Marissa explained, the liability is absorbed differently. You're shielded under our structure. You're not left alone to fight something meant for people with criminal intent. Shielded, I muttered, without even knowing I needed a shield. There was a difference between helping someone and taking over their life. She'd chosen the latter. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Marissa hesitated. Because if the board caught wind of any legal exposure linked to you, they'd have forced me to sever all ties with your practice immediately. And if they knew I was your husband, they'd demand even more transparency. They'd ask questions I couldn't answer without exposing the acquisition. Or you. So you hid me, I said bitterly. And you replaced me with Damon in public. It wasn't replacing, she said quickly. It was protecting. The optics needed to show stability. A CEO with a husband outside of a potential financial scandal. I let out a short, humorless laugh. So you gave me a life I didn't choose, made Damon your pretend spouse, and turned my business into a corporate asset. All while telling me everything at home was fine? There was never an easy way to say any of this, she whispered. I ran a hand through my hair. You married me because I made your life feel grounded, steady. Too steady, apparently. But all this time I never needed to pretend to be someone else. I never needed a fake partner, I just needed transparency. Marissa's shoulders sagged. I know that now. Do you? I asked. Because it feels like you trusted me least when it mattered most. She stepped closer and bright afternoon sun spilled across the side of her face, highlighting the exhaustion forming around her eyes. Joel, you're the only person in my entire life I trust, she said quietly. That's why I couldn't risk losing you. My breath caught. She wasn't lying. Not this time. Her voice cracked on the last syllable and I saw the cost of the facade she'd been carrying. Damon cleared his throat gently and moved toward the door. I'll give you two some time. When the door clicked shut, Marissa finally sat down across from me. Not behind her desk, not in power mode. Just across from me like she used to at our dining table when we were younger. I haven't slept more than 4 hours a night in almost 5 months, she admitted. This expansion, this investigation, the board watching my every move. I've been juggling it all, trying to keep you untouched by it. But you didn't keep me untouched, I said. You left me in the dark. I know. Her voice broke, and I hate myself for that. Silence settled between us. Not heavy, just honest. What happens now? I finally asked. Marissa exhaled shakily. The subpoenas hit next week. We need to get ahead of them. We'll create a disclosure packet for your role, clarify your innocence, and position your practice under our legal umbrella, but what? She hesitated. Someone tipped off Hutchrow that we're investigating the shell accounts, she said. We think someone inside Meridian is leaking information. My stomach tightened. You think someone at your company is helping cover the laundering trail? She nodded. And if that's true, Joel, your name isn't just collateral damage anymore, it's leverage. Leverage? For what? For whoever is hiding the money. They need fall guys to point to. And a small practice accountant with clean books is the perfect target. I felt cold from the inside out, even in the bright sunlight. Before I could speak, Marissa added the final blow. And the leak isn't just feeding information to Hutchrow. We believe they're feeding information about you. Because according to Marissa's internal intel, someone inside Meridian had already started altering records. And they were making it look like I wasn't an innocent bystander at all, but a willing participant. The next 72 hours felt like living inside a brightly lit interrogation room, except no one was interrogating me yet. They were preparing to. Marissa had me stay close to her office over the weekend so we could work through every possible angle of the unfolding investigation. She booked us a sun-filled corner suite in a downtown hotel, the kind with floor-to-ceiling windows that soaked every inch of the room in warm daylight from morning until sunset. She said it was so I wouldn't feel trapped in the house where all of this had broken open. But deep down, I knew she also wanted to keep me where no one else could get to me first. Sunday morning, I woke to light spilling across the sheets and the soft sound of Marissa pacing the living area, phone tucked against her shoulder. She was speaking low and firm, not stressed, but focused. I'd seen this side of her during major corporate deals. Laser sharp, strategic, unstoppable. When she finally hung up and looked over at me, her expression softened. "Breakfast?" she asked, lifting a bag of warm pastry she'd picked up downstairs. As we sat by the window with golden sun pouring over the table, she finally exhaled. "They're accelerating the subpoenas," she said. "Meridian could be contacted as early as Tuesday." I set down my coffee. "And the leak? We traced the digital breach patterns last night." She hesitated. "It's someone high-ranking, someone with privileged access, meaning this isn't just an internal leak," she said quietly. "It's a deliberate sabotage from someone who wants both Meridian and you to take the fall." I tried to swallow past the dryness in my throat. "Why me?" "Because you're the cleanest signature in the entire network," she said. "You don't set off alarms. You don't attract suspicion. That makes you the easiest person to frame while the real architect disappears through the cracks." She wasn't wrong. My entire career had been built on being reliable, quiet, and trusted. I was the guy everyone overlooked because I'd never given anyone a reason to look twice. Hundreds of clients, thousands of filings, but only one mistake, letting someone else's crime slip past me unnoticed, and someone had seen that as an opportunity. "Marissa," I said slowly, "who exactly do you think is targeting me?" Before she could answer, her tablet chimed. A message flashed across the lock screen. Damon. He only ever messaged her urgently when something major had dropped. She opened it, and I watched her entire body go still. "Marissa?" I asked. "What does it say?" She turned the screen toward me. A falsified financial statement with my electronic signature. Not one of my real signatures, a forged one, but good enough to fool anyone who didn't know my exact numbering habits. The document tied me directly to a Hutchrow Shell account dated 8 months ago. A charge of more than $100,000 moved through a series of transfers, and every path ended with the same fraudulent signature. My name, my filing ID, my practice address. It was the perfect smoking gun. "But I didn't prepare this," I said. "I've never even seen this account." "I know," she said. "And that's why they forged your digital print. It's precise but not perfect. However," she tapped the screen, zooming in on the metadata. "It was uploaded from inside Meridian." My heart dropped. "From inside? Your company?" She nodded, jaw tightening. "This confirms it, Joel. The person sabotaging you is someone who wants both of us ruined." "How does this ruin you?" I asked. Her eyes darkened, but not in gloom, in clarity. "Because anything tied to Meridian looks like a failure of my oversight. If you go down, the board will drag me with you. So whoever is doing this isn't just after me," I murmured. "They're after your position," Marissa whispered. "They want me removed, and they're using you to do it." A strange calm settled over me then. The same calm I'd felt during the worst moments of my life, when panic became useless and only action mattered. "Then we fight back," I said simply. Her head snapped up. "What? You've spent the last 2 years protecting me from things you thought would break us," I said. "Now it's my turn to protect us from something trying to break you." She stared at me, the light from the window catching the glassy shimmer in her eyes. "Joel, you should hate me for everything I hid." "I did," I said honestly, "for about a day. But hiding the truth wasn't betrayal, it was fear. And if there is one thing I'm good at handling, it's fear." We spent the next hour building a disclosure packet that documented my original signatures from verified filings, the forged metadata, the discrepancies in transfer patterns, the timeline showing I couldn't have accessed any Meridian systems, the inconsistencies in the laundering ledger. Piece by piece, we assembled a story that turned the frame job inside out. By midday, sunlight filled the room so brightly that the reflection on the table made everything look sharper, cleaner, like the day itself approved of what we were doing. Before we sent the packet to her internal counsel, Marisa touched my wrist. "Joel, I don't deserve you." I gave a tired smile. "Maybe not, but we're here now." We submitted everything. The fight had officially begun, and it wasn't just my name on the line anymore, it was hers. And if you've been listening this far, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It helps more than you know.